So fantastic. We'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Hamstra Smith, and we are so excited you're joining us today to learn how to make Salesforce RAD. As mentioned, my name is Wendy, and I'm Director of Sales Enablement at Enrollment Rx. We'll learn a little bit more about Enrollment Rx, but a bit about me before we start. I did spend 15 years working in higher education myself. 7 years of that was as a Salesforce and an ERX user. So I'm very excited today to talk through how you can enhance the power of the platform. But first, I am joined by a special guest, Dale from Salesforce. Dale, do you mind introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about Salesforce?
Absolutely, Wendy. Thanks so much for having me, and so glad to be here with all of you. I am Dale Vanderwell, one of the higher education industry advisors at Salesforce. And what that means is there's a group of us that are former university, college and university administrators, leaders. And so for me, that means that I just spent 30 years at the University of Maryland and a few other places as well. But I worked across the University of Maryland in student affairs, academic affairs. I helped start a research center, but the last 8 years, I was the assistant dean and chief operating officer of the Robert H. Smith School of Business. And that was a school of about 5,000 students. And that's where I really got acquainted with Salesforce, helped to implement Salesforce across the business school, but then also helped the university implement Salesforce on our campus. And we did that in recruiting and admissions. We did that in the student experience, as well as in the advancement space. So we really did think about Salesforce as the platform that could really help us engage with all of our constituents. And I think that's what I want to set the stage with today before Wendy jumps in and talks about Enrollment Rx and the solution that they have for recruiting and admissions. Because I think what's really important for all of you to understand, the power of Salesforce is truly as a platform that will help you across the student journey. And we all know that the most important first step that students take is in the recruiting and admissions journey that they have. So there's so many ways that you're gathering information, you're building that relationship with those students, and you want a tool and a solution that meets your needs, first of all, but that's also flexible and allows you to do the things that you want to do as an institution. And you don't want to be told what to do, how to do it. You want the flexibility to be able to do it in the way that accentuates the greatness of your institution. And I think that's one of the reasons that I loved Salesforce, is that flexibility and ease of use to really be able to do the things that we wanted it to do. The other thing that I think is so powerful is I think we all know that students today expect to be personalized, have their communication personalized for the institution to treat them as a person, as not just a number. And so the power of that personalization and how we communicate with our prospective students, how we engage with them, and really allowing for the institution to shine in that is really critical. And then the other thing that I think is so powerful about Salesforce is we've been in the business of higher ed for decades. So really being able to tap into the higher ed community, all of the people and institutions that are using Salesforce to support the student journey is so powerful. I think we all love in higher ed to collaborate and to learn from each other and to know how other people are using it, ones that may look like us and even ones that don't look like us. And so I loved being part of that community. I hope that you would also. And, really, this is the first step in that journey. And the recruiting and admissions is not the last part, it's the first part. And so that connected campus, the way that Salesforce as a platform supports that student journey is so powerful. And I'm excited that Wendy gets to talk about their solution, a really great way to build on Salesforce as the platform for, again, the first part of that journey. So Wendy, take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. We really appreciate that. And as mentioned, the platform is very critical to what we do here at Enrollment Rx. So we talk about our three Ps. Platform, which Dale has already given us a little bit of an overview, is the power of that Salesforce platform and how it can really transform your educational institutions. And above and beyond that platform, we're building products on top of that platform in order to provide our schools, our institutions, tools for recruitment, admissions, and decisions so you can get up and running and really harness that power of Salesforce right away. We'll talk a little bit more about it, and I'll show you how our products are really designed to be flexible. For those of you who are familiar with Salesforce, we talk about object agnostic. We work on the EDA platform, maybe NPSP. So we really have geared our tools to be very flexible again for our schools to use. And then three are people. So as Dale mentioned, the people who in the institutions who are doing similar things to you and those who are doing very different things, but how can we learn and engage from that process? So to kind of put it all together, how we envision it is Salesforce is the platform, Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, Experience Cloud, and I'll show you some of the great things we can do for applicant portals on top of Experience Cloud. A Salesforce communication tool like Pardot, for example, or Marketing Cloud, as well as some of the other great partners in the App Exchange universe here. And then on top of that, we're installing and we're managing and we're training you how to use our products for recruitment and admissions and decisions. So whether it's the automation that moves an application from inquiry to admit, our reader tool in order to review, score, route students, dynamic events, what students are invited to which events, capacity setting, etc. Form Builder, which allows you to create beautiful portals, forms, lots of functionality there we'll talk about. Importing of data from external data sources to transform, dedupe, and then finally integration. So all of this fantastic data you're collecting doesn't end here in Salesforce. It needs to be integrated with your third-party systems like your SIS, your campus management learning tool, etc. So overall, this creates our R.A.D solution. So Salesforce is a platform, building on top of that with our products. Now, at the end of an implementation with us, you will have all the tools you need in order to have a complete and full CRM. So whether it's the very beginning of your funnel is collecting inquiry forms, scoring each student, tracking each and every time they're raising their hand when it comes to their interest in your institution, through admission application portals, checklists, application review, events, and then of course data. All this great data again is living inside of Salesforce, and so your staff need to have the ability to pull that data, make some really strong data-driven decisions, and then of course communication. Our students are wanting to know, where am I in the process? What's the next step? Do you want me to be a student at your institution? And then again, finally, integration. So today, for interest of time, we're going to really focus a little bit more on the recruitment, admissions, and events piece. But our hope is that this small intro into our products and the platform will entice you to schedule a further demo where we can really customize it to your needs. And then last, we would not be here, Dale and I, ourselves, if there wasn't for this fantastic Salesforce Enrollment Rx community that we are part of. And so our pleasure is to really, our mission really is to provide the technology in order to drive our clients' missions. So whether you are an institution that is a two-year institution offering open admission and maybe associate's degrees, if you are a specialized program focusing on a particular program, through one of our great liberal arts schools all the way through campus-wide systems, our products are really designed for any user, any use case. And so I hope today you can see how this could fit in with your particular use case. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Here's some contact information. I'll put it back up after we're done with the demo, but I'm going to switch over and walk you through what it would look like potentially to use Enrollment Rx in Salesforce. Okay, we're going to start with our fictional university, Enrollment Rx. Enrollment Rx has been recruiting students, and they really want to continue to give their students a personalized, dynamic experience. So I'm going to talk about today the big three. How does a student get into our mailing list? How do they get text messages and communication? How can they visit campus, either virtually or in person? and then of course apply. I do want to put a little caveat on apply is that we provide native applications on the Salesforce platform, but many of our schools we serve are also using third-party applications, whether that's a common application, a CAS application, a statewide application. Our team has significant experience bringing in those third-party applications into your CRM system so that your students could still have a very personalized experience while still utilizing some of those great functionality of those shared applications. So I'll start with the first example of inquiry. Now, there's many ways a student can get into your communication system, but one of them could be through one of the fantastic marketing tools that Salesforce provides. Quick example is a part-out form here. Student can fill out some information about him or herself, maybe then choose which program they're interested in, so maybe a bachelor's degree. Here are my options here as a student, but maybe I'm going to first start with my associate's degree. Options here, or finally a master's degree. So this allows your students to really pick and choose what the right fit for them is. And then once you submit an application, an inquiry, perhaps you might receive an email that tells the student, thank you so much, Dana, for applying or for inquiring. We're really excited. You're going to be part of our school. Here's some great information. Maybe we're going to have them continue on and click on different pages to learn more. And meanwhile, all of this is being tracked so that your students are receiving really personalized communication and your team is knowing how are your students responding? Are they opening emails? Are they clicking on links, etc.? So our student Dana here is really interested in accounting, which is fantastic. So she already clicked on this email, and because of that, we sent her automatically another email. So for example, she might get an email saying, hey Dana, we see that you're interested. You've been clicking on some links, and so we want to go ahead and invite you to maybe come to our next open house or apply for admission. So in this use case, I'll go ahead and actually start to do an event registration. So from here, we're encouraging the student to come in and check out what opportunities are available for her to visit at her institution. So we've provided some links for her, but I'll show you a little bit later how you can also have that in the applicant portal as well. So she's received a link and says, come in and learn about the upcoming visits we have. So here's an example of an event registration form. Our event tool is embedded inside of Salesforce. It's really important because we already know that Dana is interested in accounting, or we already know she's interested in a particular entry term. So we don't have to have a rekey information if we don't want to. We also want to make sure that maybe she's being invited to the right events. However, our events tools also can be pretty wide open. So this could be embedded on your website. So a student can click a button on your website, visit us now, and see some information about upcoming visits. A few functionality points I want to go over is just one is that each of our events can have capacity. We found this to be really important, especially during the pandemic, where our schools started to bring students back to campus for tours and admissions interviews, but space became even more important as we wanted to make sure we were safely reopening. So each of our events could have capacity for the whole event for individual sessions. You also can have wait lists. The beauty of this is all managed automatically through our Enrollment Rx tool. So your team doesn't have to go in and remember to open new spots or send a waitlist email, all done through automation. Another example of something I want to point out here is that you can have additional details on the calendar view about each event. We know that our events are maybe very specific to our students, and we want to make sure a incoming maybe freshman is seeing different events than a transfer student, and so that they're picking the right choice for them as they continue their process. We can also have searches. So maybe perhaps you want to take a look at an upcoming event, and maybe you're very specifically going to be looking for maybe orientation, for example, or you want to do just a tour. You can filter all of these events, and the students can also set start and end dates. Spring break maybe is coming up and they want to visit campus. Let's figure out a good time for them to come to campus. I'll show you one example of a campus visit and then show you one other one before we move into the application process. So here we have an example of something in our Enrollment Rx, which is itinerary based. So a student can come in here and fill out some information about themselves. Again, we're natively built on the Salesforce platform. So as she fills out her information, it's going to make sure that we are running all of the deduping logic, making sure that we're connecting her to the right record. Or if she's brand new, this might be the very first time that she enters your CRM. And so now you know that her lead source was an event registration, and you can begin to really cultivate her interest and her experience into your university. Some of the functionality I really love about Events Rx is that you can sort by time slot. So a student can see, here are the available times for me as part of this visit. Or maybe they could search by activity. So during this visit, here are the 2 activities I could do, and here are my different times. So for example, if I pick 9 o'clock presentation, and then the student comes and also picks 9 o'clock campus tour, you can also program it so that a student could never double book them. In my 15 years in higher education, I did spend many years in the events team, and this was really, life-saving for us in terms of making sure students don't get frustrated by double booking themselves and saving time on our side to not have to reach out and kind of get them rescheduled. So just a little easy, quick, fun win there. So again, this could create a registration for the student. It could create a new record if they don't exist yet. I do want to show you one other type of event. So if we remember, I went into my email and I clicked on this link that said next open house. So first I looked at the general visit options and then my next open house. So if I go into my next open house, this is another functionality where you can invite a student to a particular event. So if you notice, Dana's information is already pre-populated and read-only. She's specifically invited to this event. Again, maybe it's a scholarship event or an orientation. And so this is customized for her. It's got her information already filled in. And then you can choose what additional fields you want to ask a student on the registration form. Maybe I'm asking birthday or parking pass, mailing street. Maybe I'm asking her food choice for that event. But whatever data I'm collecting about her can all be done through this form and can update her record. So just for interest of time, let's make sure we have all of our required fields. And I'll go ahead and I'll submit our registration for her to this virtual open house. So another thing to point out is there's several ways that you can, manage your event attendance. One way can be through manually entering them into the system once they arrive, but really we want to make sure that you're using that automation. So I'll show you an example of one type here. So I should be getting an email. There we go. I have come to my virtual open house. I am coming on the 23rd, and maybe this is a Zoom. So this is a virtual open house, and the student is coming in here and has pre-populated Zoom information. So in our one of our most recent releases, we included Zoom integration. Another example of how you can have registration management is through QR codes. So you can have your Salesforce app downloaded on your phone and scan the student in when they come using the QR code. Automatically updates them to attended, and all of that great post-event communication can go out appropriately. Okay, so back to the beginning of our email here, or our website. So we talked a little bit about ways that students could inquire. We talked a little bit about visits. So let's actually talk about applying. So as mentioned in the earlier part of our presentation, we are utilizing something called Experience Cloud. This is a technology of Salesforce that allows for an authenticated portal experience, meaning that your students can come in, create a login, and come back in time over time into their applicant portal. There's so many different uses for Experience Cloud, but specifically we find oftentimes that an applicant portal or student portal is one of the most common use cases in higher education. What we do at Enrollment Rx is we use our form builder technology to create a beautiful user interface on top of it, allow for you to embed things like checklists, assign counselor, etc. So we're really harnessing that Experience Cloud engine and putting on top of that usability and the user interface that is really what our students are looking for. So as an example, a student can come in here and create a registration to their applicant portal. So again, maybe you're going to ask some general questions on here. Again, for those of you who are familiar with Salesforce, every single field we're leveraging on all of these forms is your Salesforce field itself. Really beneficial, especially for schools we hear oftentimes saying, we have lots of different forms. I have to update, one field on this form and then remember all the other 15 forms that are out there that are referencing that question. Because we're on top of Salesforce, every field we're using is going to go directly into Salesforce, and you have the power to decide if it should be updated or read-only, etc. So on our example here, we have just general information we want to collect about a student, first name, last name, email. We're asking for a password. In our demo example, maybe we're asking for country of citizenship, or maybe our particular university is offering different methods of instruction, so online versus on campus. From there, again, similar to the inquiry form, I can choose my different programs I'm interested in. Another use case we see this solve oftentimes is schools that have multiple applications. So we hear we have a graduate application, we have an undergrad application, all hosted on their current CRM, but it does require students to enter from all different directions. And once they start to move into one application, they're kind of locked that way. Our goal is to provide this really flexible experience, because sometimes a student doesn't actually know what the correct maybe status they are or classification. My previous institution, we would have, freshmen coming in sometimes indicating they would transfer because they took community college credit, et cetera. In our eyes, they're still freshmen, for example. So you really can help lead a student to the right path. In addition to providing information to create a record for them, we're also going to, of course, be deduping. If the student already exists, we're going to pop up an error message letting them know that they already have a registration, let's reset your password, etc. Another area we use this information for is, of course, to shape their experience as maybe they land on their homepage portal. So again, reiterating, everything we're doing is built natively on the Salesforce platform. So all of the information that the student is providing us, information that maybe you're importing from third-party applications or sources, information that you are, adding in a conversation, updating their phone number, et cetera, can all be leveraged as part of their student's experience. So here's just a quick example of a portal. We do, as a side note, Enrollment Rx have 5 of these templates out of the box that are ADA compliant and mobile friendly. Our goal is to really provide our schools those resources to get up and running on Salesforce as quickly as possible, but still having all of this fantastic tools like we're going to talk about today. In our example here, our student can see, that little, maybe a text box welcoming her to their application portal. Maybe again, what status she is. And so all demo purposes, of course, our goal would be to configure this based on your specifications. Where we might see that a student's an app started, maybe as she moves through the process, she'll become app submitted and eventually be ready to review and get a decision made. We also might see checklist items. This is a functionality Enrollment Rx provides where you can have a multitude of different checklist items that are dynamic. So because the student is maybe interested in an accounting program, she sees this set of requirements. But if she was moving into a master's program, perhaps she sees a different set of checklist requirements. Again, all of these are configurable and controlled by your operational admins with the support of the Enrollment Rx and Salesforce teams. Other just things to point out, assigned admission counselors. We have fantastic, robust assignment rules. So whether you're assigning people by a territory or a school or round robin or by last name, whatever criteria you're using to say, this is the person that Dana should reach out to as deputy director. We have part of our core functionality that provides that capability. We talked about events already, but again, you can embed your events inside their portal. And then, maybe getting some information about the school out there front and center on the portal, some upcoming events that are happening, maybe a great video. We do see many of our schools who are making this super personalized so that if she is an accounting student, she might see a little YouTube video about an accounting program, whether by a professor or by a student. So we want to make sure, again, our students are really seeing the information that they need, both for transactional purposes, but also for, again, that feeling of fit and that the school is desiring them to enroll at their institution. So moving on, so this is an example of a home page here. But if you utilize our technology for an application, whether again this is a native application to your institution, or we also do, as I mentioned before, work with third-party applications and provide supplemental. So maybe you're going to ask some questions above and beyond some of those shared applications you're using. All of our technology has the power to have required fields, rendered fields, fields that are changing based on answers. So for example, I say U.S. citizen. Here's a series of questions that are available for me. If I check maybe I'm an active duty or military veteran, new questions are popping up. But if I go back and change that to international student, maybe different questions are showing up, a section's disappeared. So again, the idea is, really making sure that as your students are moving through the application, you're asking them the right questions and then leading them to the next steps from there. Okay, so going on to the next page here, I will take a look at maybe some enrollment information. So we can talk a long time about one of our favorite functionalities about our products, but I will point out a couple of things here that are really important to know when it comes to building out applications. Is again that flexibility to say maybe the board approves a brand new program. So we are starting a new cybersecurity program, for example, and many times we hear from prospective clients is that it's difficult to add that to their current application. Either they need to come back in and do a lot of programming, coding, or put a request into their CRM provider, and it takes a while. Because again, everything we're doing is built on a Salesforce platform, which is designed to be low code, no code. If a new program is created, it's easy as adding it into Salesforce and then being able to use pick lists and filters to show it on your application. So again, I've used this example already, but changing the different pick lists to say which programs should be displayed to the student based on a previous question. Okay, and then I'll show you two more things, and then we'll head back to the home page, and I will show you how all of this information the student is providing to us is going to change her homepage. So the next thing I want to point out is the idea of collecting information about a previous educational institution, maybe an organization, is something we call add another. And what that means is that a student can add a record that's related to their application. A great example is that with high school. So I might say I go to high school and I'll just type in maybe green. When I type in the word green, it's going to auto select and pull back anything that inside of our Salesforce system that has the word green in it, whether it's the name or maybe the city. If you notice here, it's pulling back a particular type. What's going in here is where we're storing all of these educational institutions. It's pulling back just that fit of high school and the word green. So I'll just pick Greenfield High School, and then you can auto populate it so the student can determine, yes, this is my correct school. You also can ask for, of course, extra information, upload documents, etc. I'll do that same exercise down here, type in green, but now I'm just pulling back university. And so it, again, makes it really easy for a student to complete the application. And if you notice, these are actual records in your system. So if your team is saying, let's see how Greenfield High School is performing year over year, you're going to want to make sure every student who has applied, been admitted, enrolled from this high school is accounted for to this one record. So that again comes back to that ease of reporting to say, let's pull a report of everyone from Greenfield High School and see if we're seeing that this is becoming a top tier feeder school for us, or perhaps it's due for a visit, or maybe I reach out to the college counselor for more details. Okay, last thing I'll show you before I move back to the home page is the idea of recommendation. So recommendations, another example of where you can add another functionality. And so maybe at your institution, you're going to ask for a letter of recommendation. But our technology allows you to set the minimum requirements. So how many does a student have to submit in order to finish their application? Also, you can set maximum. Maybe you want no more than 3 recommendations. And so you can set the tool to only accept 3 recommendations. You also can have maybe different types of recommendations. So if I go ahead and pick character, for example, this is going to describe to the student maybe what type of reference we should have here. So I'll go ahead and just type in a fake one just to show you what this looks like. Okay, and I'll do a fictional email address here. Okay, so let's see. Then we'll go ahead and we'll hit save and continue. I'm going to remove that one and save and continue. Okay, I'm going to go back into my home page now and just show you how things have started to change for her. So again, as Dana was coming into her application portal, she was seeing, information about the institution, where she was in the checklist requirements, et cetera. But now that she's provided some additional information through her application, when she comes back in the portal, she's going to be able to see that things are a little bit different for her, and maybe specifically what is required. So if I go back in here, I can see now that I have a transcript here for Kentucky Tech Bowling Green, and then a recommendation for Carl character. All of these recommendations or all these checklists can be fulfilled by the student themselves, uploading a document. So for example, you might allow a student to upload a essay or a resume, etc. You also maybe perhaps will send an email out to recommender to have them fill out some information about your student. Or of course, these checklists can be fulfilled by importing test scores or electronic transcript services. So that was a quick high-level overview of an applicant portal. So in our remaining time together before we move it over to Q&A, I do want to show you what it would look like from your perspective. So we saw the experience from Dana. We saw how it's really configurable in terms of showing Dana exactly what she needs to see, giving her an experience that's unique to her. But let's talk a little bit about what it would look like for you and your team when you log into your CRM. So I'm going to log into Salesforce now. And I'm logged in as Debbie Director. So Debbie Director can come on in and each and every day see things such as her reports, her dashboards. So Salesforce has the ability to create great reports and dashboards, and Enrollment Rx on top of it is building out a lot of the automation and functionality in order to make those dashboards really come to life. So as Director of Admission, I might want to come in and see, how are my apps running year over year, perhaps. Maybe checking out my goals. So I have a team here and they are each assigned a goal. And I want to just see, is there a way I can help my team manage their territory a little bit better? Maybe looking at, upcoming tasks. Let's reach out to Dana. She's been receiving some emails, but we want to make sure that she gets a phone call, as well as any things on my calendar. So we have integration with Outlook and Gmail, for example. So I can see at 1:30 today, I should be spending some time reviewing applications. So let's take a look at Dana. So I'll go into my contact records here and I can pull just a list, for example. I just want to see who's all my new contacts today, for example. Looks like we have Dana here. So I do want to point out a few things on Dana's record. So I can see, of course, any information that she is providing to us. I also can see events she's registered for. So here's an example of an open house that she just registered for, so that I know, she's coming at the end of April, which is fantastic because May 1 is our deadline, for example. So I know she's going to get a chance to see campus before she starts. I might also want to see things such as her engagement. So how often is she opening up emails? Is she clicking on links? So these are just another great way to just see how engaged she is in the process. And then, of course, lots of other functionality when it comes to creating tasks, logging phone calls. But I want to show you her application view from your perspective. So Dana is able to see all of her required items, maybe her mission status, et cetera, all in her portal. But this is what you and your team might see. So you might have a progress bar, for example, with your different stages of the funnel. So I can see she's app started right now. I might also see that she's got 4 documents that are required in order for her to move to that next step. And this is that automation that Enrollment Rx is providing, is this quick access panel to see your students, and then the automation to move them to the various steps. So I can see, for example, she needs an application fee, an essay, etc. I can see she's 0% complete. And this is another one of the functionality that I found, which is, a very simple add, but a very useful one, is this is a merge field. So as you send her an email out to say, dear Dana, looks like, the deadline's coming up, we're missing these documents. This is a merge field that would go into your email. So just for interest of time, I will go ahead and submit a application fee for her. So maybe she came in and handed us a check, or whatever the case might be. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and do a good old-fashioned refresh here. So now she has fulfilled one of her checklist requirements. Again, that was just a quick manual way. The majority of our schools are having them upload them or, of course, import in order to bring over that data. But I can see now that she has 3 documents that are pending and 1 received. So the next time I send her an email, she might just see now exactly what she's missing. And I went back into the home page, I would see that application has been checked off for her in our portal. So again, just really great way in order to provide that student that self-service portal experience, but also your team the ability to really manage and track that application. The last thing I'll show you is the process of reviewing applications. So there are several ways that a student can move through the process. One way is through an automated flow. So schools we work with might say, you know, if a student meets this minimum requirement for their ACT or SAT, they have a GPA, they're top 10% of their class, whatever criteria you have. Once she meets those criteria, it could automatically move her to review or to admit or whatever status you want. Another way we have is called, it's through our Reader RX tool. So Reader RX is the ability for your team, whether it's the admission counselors, it's the admission committee, it's a faculty review, for example. You have the ability to have a really easy to use interface. So for example, Debbie Director can see the people who are assigned to her, as well as anybody she's previously reviewed. I might be able to click on this review button here. I'll check Noah here, for example. And this interface, just like everything else I've shown you, is extremely customizable. So you can choose what's going to be displayed on this review piece here. So you might do a quick scroll, take a look at all of the information she's provided, her education history, her test scores, etc. I might want to delve a little deeper into her education history. So clicking on this subfield here, subcategory, I can learn a little bit more about Noah's previous education, you know, start and end dates of schooling, maybe if you're asking for certain GPAs, etc. I can be scoring the whole time along the right-hand side. Again, just examples, you can score 1 through 5. It can be qualitative. It could be pick lists, for example. Maybe I'm picking my top attributes, etc. At any point, you can save it, come back to it, finish up that work, or submit it. And that submission could either create a application decision status, or it could send it to the next person to review. Again, totally up to you. Last thing to point out here is just the idea of documents. And so schools we work with, many of them are bringing their documents inside of Salesforce or using our integration services to bring it in from your external imaging systems. But regardless of how you're doing that, once the document's inside of Salesforce, you can also use our document annotation functionality to make updates on the document. This is a reference letter, for example. So maybe I'm coming in here and I'm reading this reference letter on behalf of our students. And once I review it, I might want to score. Maybe I want to annotate. So, you know, just very quick functionality here. Maybe I want to circle something, you know, oh, Econ 101, or highlight it, or, you know, sign off on it. There's a signature there, save it, export it, etc. We find this to be a very common use case with transcripts as you're going through and saying, you know, which prereqs are counting towards this person's degree. Okay, so that was a very quick overview of our CRM products. So I am going to go back and just make sure I answer any questions that everybody has regarding our demo today. Okay, just going to pause real quick and see what we got going on here. Okay, question. How long does an implementation normally take? Great question. At Enrollment Rx, we have the ability to implement Salesforce with you alongside of our R.A.D products. So an average implementation may take about 6 months from start to finish. Again, that's an average. We have some schools who are more aggressive with their timeline and others who need a little bit of a longer time frame. So our team really makes sure that we are aligning with your goals, your go live dates, important times within your institution, as well as just any other technology that's happening. So we have a pretty templated approach, but lots of room though to make sure that we are addressing your particular needs. Okay, question. Do your products need EDA to work? great question. So Enrollment Rx actually predated EDA. And so, we made sure as we went through and built our products that we were really focused on two kind of main criteria here. One, as I mentioned before, object agnostic. So just making sure that whether you're using an EDA object, if you're using an object, maybe you're already using Salesforce, for example, and wanting to start to leverage it more and you have your own custom object, either way is fantastic. We love the EDA platform because it provides such a great foundation and architecture for our schools. But we do understand that sometimes it may not be an option for you, or maybe perhaps your institution is using the non-profit success pack. So again, object agnostic and can use it with EDA or not. Okay, what kind of admin users do you normally see in implementation? So in our perspective, there's usually two sets of admin users. There might be that person from your IT department who is maybe leveraging, IP addresses, or, it's a little bit of a security functionality. And so we might, leverage an IT resource in order to do a little bit of integration work, for example. But the majority of our schools are operational users. And what I mean by that is somebody who is, the person who is inside as a business user who perhaps is overseeing the applications now, et cetera. Our goal is to really train you all to use these products in a way that's very efficient for you, and also that knowledge is transferable. So just briefly, my previous experience, I was associate director and then dean of operations and did not have a CRM background. And so being able to leverage a low-code, no-code system like Salesforce and Enrollment Rx really helped us to have that control of our CRM and be really responsive. And so again, the majority of the work is really done by our end users and operational users with a little bit of assistance from IT usually for setup. Okay, so we are right almost to the end. So I do want to just say a huge thank you for everybody who was able to join us. A huge thank you to Dale for joining us as well from Salesforce. It's always a pleasure. And we hope that you are interested in learning a little bit more about Salesforce and Enrollment Rx. So please always, reach out. Don't hesitate to contact your account executive who you may already have a relationship with, or send us a quick email. And we'd love to show you how Enrollment Rx can make Salesforce RAD for your institution. So thanks again.